welcome back, guys, to the Knoxville Rumble presented here by the Wide League. My name is the Dodd, and I am with my caster in crime, Slim. How's it going, Slim?
It's been a while, and I'm happy to be back in the chair because I've missed casting and
Right.
especially casting Pokemon. But have
Mhm.
been watching all the other casters. A fantastic job they've been doing, and some great matches we've seen today. And looking forward to seeing actually another great matchup. And so, Dot, how have you been? It's been a while.
It's been a minute, man. I've been doing good. I was at San Diego. I had a lot of fun there. Met a lot of cool people. Been
Cool.
trying to keep up with as much of the regional information that's been going on. And yeah, we there have been some great casts tonight. We've got Dov earlier, Supernova,
Hmm.
Sav, Eric, Casual Boy. Shout out to
Yeah.
all of them and everything there. And we've got another team coming up here, and it looks like we're going to have our round six matchups here. Looks like we might even have a rain team coming up. Let's see
Yeah.
what we got as we transition over here.
I'm looking forward to seeing, of course, how the meta game's been evolving. Of course, if anybody's been keeping up with the OCIC, Rain is right now, and of course, the Pala fans are going crazy because it's once again shown its power, not only in Orlando with Wolf Glick and his Paratrap team, but
Right.
Gavin Michaels is in finance currently with Pelipper, but Palafin is definitely one of those mods to beat right now because it is so strong once it gets that zero to hero transformation. And if you just round it out with a lot of great things in this format, of course, Bundle is always going to be there. Dragonite has become one of the staple mods you see around, and if you don't have any way to
Right.
stop it, it can do a lot of damage to your team.
I have had a constant problem underestimating the power of Dragonite in this meta, and it's really been really exciting to see. I actually started using it myself, and it is so much fun. But looks like we're off here. Looks like Kevin's going to throw out Lycanroc and Iron Moth, and we're going to see XZacLee bringing out King Gambit and Palafin. So really, really interesting start here. Iron Moth, of course, you've got to be worried about that acid spray combo, but does not necessarily accompanied by Fluttermane here.
Absolutely. And this is one of those interesting things here because, of course, King Gambit necessarily doesn't really like to be led in front of the Iron Moth just because of the typing and has that great coverage. But with the Terra, you can get a very good defensive Terra and get off some good damage, of course, if it is that Terra flying. And, of course, Accelerate could be a priority move to break sashes, but we do see the Pelipper coming in, setting the rain, looking to get some early action just in case of that heat wave for King Gambit to be safe.
Yeah, the rain comes in as we see the terastallization coming on XZacLee's side. It's going to be going into that King Gambit, of course, and King Gambit, of course, known for its vast terastallizations. This time, going for a grass-type Terra, making it immune to, well, particularly resisting a potential Accelerock coming from this Lycanroc. The Protect is going to go on for Iron Moth, keeping it safe. But the close combat, which would have been absolutely critical to this King Gambit, is now significantly reduced by that grass-type terastallization. Lycanroc taking some sped F drops there as the Iron Head goes into Lycanroc, leaving it with just a sliver of HP.
And that was a really fantastic defensive turn there. Just understanding, like, hey, there's two super effective moves that could come here. So let me tear just for the defense. Get this Lycanroc within range, of course, of Sucker Punch. And I can
Right.
also threaten the Tailwind for later on. So really, really great play by XZacLee there defensively, but turning it quickly into offense because
Mhm.
Tailwind is threatening now.
Right, right. It's actually a brilliant play here. I really like the terastallization on King Gambit. We see that Lycanroc's going to be withdrawn on Kevin's side. And out comes the Tyranitar, switching that terrain or switching that weather right in the favor, putting Lycanroc in a better position when it switches back in. Now we see the terastallization going into Iron Moth on Kevin's side. It's going to be interesting to see what the Terra is here. It looks like it's going to be another Grass Terra, so dual flowers on the field right now. Iron Moth, of course, very much favors that Grass type terastallization for a number of different reasons. Sucker Punch is not going to connect with anything as it's going into that switched in Tyranitar, and the Heat Wave firing off into King Gambit. Very effective now, that especially that it's that grass type. The Hydro Pump going to fire off. It's going to still hit even in this sandstorm, but the Iron Moth takes it a lot better now that it has that Grass Terra.
And I'm really surprised on how that turn went just because you had such a great turn one.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly the play was just King Gambit potentially could, take a lot of damage here, but either way, your Pelipper was pretty safe. There was nothing absolutely wrong with just going for a Tailwind there just to ensure if anything goes down, you can bring, of course, Palafin back later on, but instead tries to go for the damage and the great tear on the opposing side. And now you have to switch out that Pelipper because you kind of put yourself in a bad spot against Rock Slide and Heat Wave.
Right. And it gives you a chance to reset that weather as Amoonguss comes in for XZacLee's side. The Sucker Punch this time will connect with Tyranitar. Not doing very much to this Dark type. Heat Wave firing off from that Iron Moth will take out Kingambit, and Amoonguss does not take that very well. Now, XZacLee losing a huge offensive pressure on his side. Absolutely wild. The momentum here really starting to favor Kevin as the Rock Slide finishes off Amoonguss. Oh, you just hate to see it happen.
Absolutely a tough turn because we do have to understand Rockslide, if Kingambit was able to hold on, would have been able to keep Amoonguss safe, but since it is single target, does go down and took a lot of damage from the Heat Wave, and it all happened because of that turn 2 not being able to continue the unrelenting pressure of Rain. But his Zero to Hero is back, but the problem is you don't necessarily have the speed you want, and Iron Moth can still get off some good damage here. Jet Punch, not even close to being in range just because it is that Terra Grass type now.
Yeah, it's going to be critical to see. And Tyranitar still, there's plenty of Pokemon in the back to be able to reset that weather. And so that's what I'm thinking is going to happen here. No one's going to risk a Jet Punch on that. Palafin does like to be in this rainy situation, but if he can change that with the Sandstorm by just withdrawing Tyranitar and throwing it back out there, it's kind of worth it and it's game from there.
Absolutely. And the one thing you have to worry about now is just like, what is the last Mon in the back? Because if it is something like that, Flutter, and there it is. There's the Flutter Mane. Now this potentially, I don't necessarily like this switch though, bringing in Flutter Mane to potentially some damage into that slot. I think you would have better off just probably letting Tyranitar go down. But if you get away with it, then it might work out, but we have to see here. As you do see a Wave Crash coming in, and it is going to that Flutter Mane. That's a lot of damage. It could be a KO, and it is.
One shots this Flutter Mane as a Wave Crash in the rain from the Palafin will connect. Very critical to see that blocked Hurricane as well coming from Pelipper. That is probably the only offensive output that it really has against Iron Moth. But again, Tyranitar coming in, resetting that weather. Now those Hurricanes are much harder to hit. Even Hydro Pump is a lot less reliable in this kind of condition. This seems like we're kind of circling the drain here.
Yeah, but this is an interesting spot because we don't know yet. If the Iron Moth does have Giga Drain or any grass move, then this is perfectly okay. Because sacking the Flutter Mane usually is what you need to kind of take care of the Palafin. You do have the speed there. But we don't know the moveset yet. If it does have that grass move, it's a perfectly fine situation because then Tyranitar could either protect or just retreat back. And then Pelipper, of course, can't handle it alone. But we do see the protect from Palafin, and we have to see what the move of choice is here. And it is that Energy Ball, so does threaten a Palafin to get up a KO. If this Tyranitar is faster though, could go for Rock Slide here, but the Hurricane actually hits, and it might Iron Moth does go down. That's a huge KO there.
Huge KO as this Iron Moth goes down to a Hurricane in the sand. Not something you see happen every day. And the Tyranitar's Rock Slide isn't going to connect with the Palafin, but will do some damage to this Pelipper. Pelipper is not able to hold in, so now it is Palafin eyeing down 2 Mons on Kevin's side of the field.
And we do have to remember, the one that's in the back actually was something that was preserved earlier.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It is, the Accelerock, the Lycanroc comes back in with the sand, but the problem is Palafin with the Jet Punch could potentially pick up some KOs here. So you kind of have to call where you're going to go with this because you potentially leave yourself open to a close combat and then an Accelerock after.
Yeah, or even an Endeavor. And with the sand being up at this point, you got to expect the Endeavor coming off of Lycanroc. So you might want to Jet Punch the Lycanroc just to get it done and out of there. But then you're taking a turn from Tyranitar, and it depends on if you can survive that or not. So it's a really a mind game situation here. It's one of those situations where open team sheet doesn't help you at all, right? You still have the same mental mind games to worry about here. And I think that's really interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can know all the moves, but still you do. And there is the Endeavor. You called it, and unfortunately, the Wave Crash is actually going to, because of the recoil damage, is going to KO itself. So try to make a heroic performance here, but unfortunately, preserving the Lycanroc ended up being a win con that no one thought of just because Flutter Mane did go down earlier. And unfortunately, Zach did have early momentum in the turn 1, but unfortunately kind of let it slip away a little bit there, and Kevin was able to take a game 1 win.
Yeah, that's a absolutely critical play there. The Endeavor really coming in clutch. We've been seeing a real renaissance with Lycanroc, right? Usually you see something with Endeavor, Endure, just to be able to get down there. And if it can, it has the Focus Sash broken for whatever reason, can still kind of use Endure as its own Focus Sash, Close Combat, and Rock Slide. Throwing it out there in the sand, and you can just get spread, flinch, dice rolls for as long as you need to until you get that right down to that Focus Sash, Endeavor, and then usually in sand, since if they're not a rock type, they're going down, right? If they're not a ground or steel type, they're going down.
Absolutely. It's just one of those things like Tyranitar Lycanroc, ever since Lycanroc was introduced, has been an absolute menace anywhere you go on ladder just because of the famed and accursed name you always see on ladder, Bwahaha Cough. So every time Lycanroc's in the format Tyranitar, you see this team pop back up with these two just being an absolute menace. And now you're seeing it more in tournaments because people have just gotten used to it. And they're just like, you know what? When there's a rock slide, there's a way. And it may not have worked out in this case, but still, the same theory applies.
Right. You tend to think of like Endeavor mechanics as kind of gimmicky, but it's really interesting how much that has cemented into the meta with Lycanroc.
Absolutely.
And, back in my day, Tyranitar's best friend was Excadrill. But
the fabled hero. We do miss him.
He's not. He didn't make the trip over to Paldea, so maybe we'll see that in some DLC. But looks like we've got the next round starting up here in a few. If you're on XZacLee's side, what do you do to adjust?
Well, I think for Zach, you don't really have to make any huge adjustments, but you do have to just go for, if you get a fantastic turn one like that, you have to keep the pressure on. Making an offensive play like that versus the Fluttermane is unnecessary when you have things that can take care of it later. So you just have to make sure you keep up the momentum. And if you're Kevin, you just have to be a little bit more careful. You can't let something as important as Fluttermane just come into a free slot. If anything, listen, the rain, I understand. That's a lot of damage because you have the jet punches and the wave crash. But if you still have the speed, it doesn't matter just because Moonblast will KO. So just make sure you preserve the things that you need for your win con, like that Fluttermane.
And see quite the familiar lead here, Palafin and Kingambit. Well, Iron Moth and Lycanroc lead for Kevin.
Yeah, another interesting spot here, just because now you already saw what happened before. So this time, do you just potentially just go for, okay, what if I just potentially just go for spread damage? I just go straight for Rock Slide, and then I go for a Heat Wave. Because no matter what happens, you chip the Sash, you chip the Kingambit, and then from there you can make decisions. Because then, of course, Iron Moth will be in a great spot. You could just Terra, and then you can avoid a lot of heavy damage. Lycanroc can potentially protect, or you even switch into Tyranitar. Either way, you'll be in a good spot to KO the Pelipper. There will be no rain. There will be no Tailwind.
Yep. See the Pelipper is going to switch in here again for the Palafin, setting up that rain and giving a little bit more coverage to Kingambit. Right off the bat, Kevin's going to terastallize that Iron Moth into that grass type once again, putting it in a good situation here to protect itself against any of the water type threats on this rain team. Now we see the terastallization again for XZacLee right off the bat. We know it's going to be going into the Kingambit once again. Going to make sure that it is that grass typing and a little bit more protected in the rain from the potential heat wave pressure coming from that Iron Moth.
Yeah, actually, I'm pretty surprised here.
With
just
heat
because
wave.
I didn't expect that.
Yeah, and then we've got the burn.
Ooh,
that is going to be critical on Kingambit here. This burn as the Rock Slide also firing off into, and will leave Pelipper with just 2 HP. The invisible Focus Sash here, Iron Head, is going to go into Lycanroc. It's not even able to bring it down to Sash with that burn, and that was huge, Slim.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because I think no matter what, spread damage was the key there. Getting the burn is just kind of like the haphazard thing that can happen. But the one thing is, Pelipper is still like not KO'd yet, so that's actually a really good thing, because I think now you can just potentially just sack it so you get something in for free, because you don't want to switch in and have to take extra damage into that slot, because Lycanroc and its Iron Moth are just kind of here to stay. They're not really doing anything. Even if Lycanroc retreats right now, Iron Moth can still get off heavy damage.
Yeah, yeah. We see Palafin coming in for Pelipper, put in a pretty prominent position here with the Pelipper in the back, still able to take that rain. Endure, firing off of that Lycanroc. We were talking about that a little bit before this match. Absolutely critical here. The Heat Wave is not enough on King Gambit to take it out. Not very effective on Palafin, but gets a burn on Palafin too. 2 Heat Wave burns. Oh man, that is just heartbreaking. Assurance gonna fire off into Iron Moth, but of course, since nothing has hit at this turn, it's not doing too much. And this burn damage ends up taking more for this King Gambit than the Heat Wave did. But that burn on the Palafin, it's kind of curtains from here.
I mean, there's still a way you can bring this back, but it does put you a little bit on the back foot. This is why spread damage is really just it's very good in this format. There's nothing that really wants to keep taking these damages. That's why you used to see a lot of Pelipers or even Garganacles run wide guard, just because you have to keep taking these spread damage moves, which kind of cause you some issues, especially from a Pokemon like Iron Moth, which is an issue. We do see a Jet Punch come in, does do a lot of damage to Tyranitar, relatively, just because there is no rain. We do see a Sucker Punch. I'm not sure why not just a double up there, but we do see the Energy Ball, and that's going to pick up a KO absolutely on the Pelifin. So sorry to all the Palafans, but no heroic transformation here to save the day, and yeah, that's an easy KO.
That is, and a critical. I don't think that the Sucker Punch would have fired off into the Tyranitar, so I think the speed priority has got to be the Sucker Punch call there. But I agree with you. I mean, I feel like doubling into that is a safe call right there. Pelipper is going to come in the back here, but there's really nothing on XZacLee's side that can take out this Iron Moth.
Absolutely. I think Zach just got, unfortunately, put in a really tough position, especially game 1 was right in his grasp for picking up the KOs there and taking that game. And in game 2, the only adjustment you could have done was just go for, I mean, unfortunately, you just really got burned, and then you switched in and got burned again, so it kind of put you in a tough spot. Oh. This Iron Moth has been on the field for way too long. It's been just doing so much. I mean, potentially, if you had tried to double tap it, maybe you could have picked up a KO, but unfortunately, just Iron Moth just really went a little ballistic this match, even in the rain.
Yeah, Iron Moth kind of being unchecked here, as both of these Mons will go down to a Heat Wave, even in the rain. Fluttermane, of course, in a perfect position, and with only a Moongus in the back, you got to think that that Zach calls it here. It's unless you think a Moongus can take out 4 other Pokemon, I think that you just you go for it here. But it looks like that's not going to be the case. Iron Moth's going to go for the Heat Wave in the rain. Amoonguss, super effective, but still not doing too much. Mystical Fire firing off. Still not enough to take out this Amoonguss. Pollen Puff's going to fire off into the Iron Moth. It will be enough to take it out. So a little bit of differential here that can help out. So, you know, at least it's not a 4-0, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now you're just kind of... Yeah, you're playing for pride a little bit, but there was definitely, if you wish you could take it back, because there's a lot of different ways you could have got this game, because I do think the matchup actually is in XZacLee's favor, but unfortunately, the leads in the turn 1s just didn't go well. In game 1, it did go correctly. Game 2, not so much. You got burned, and you got burned again into your main source of offense, so it's just a little tough spot to be in, and, you know, unfortunately, that is the game we play, so those things can happen. A little unfortunate, but all in all, pretty good match.
Yeah, absolutely. The burns there, I mean, that was the story of the whole match. I mean, getting a burn on not 1 but 2 Heat Waves on your biggest, hardest hitters on the team. When you're running a rain team, you want to set things up, particularly for things like Kingambit and Palafin, and having them nerfed right off the bat. That was the situation that I think was completely unovercomable for XZacLee in this situation. So, but yeah, that will bring us to our next round. I think that was actually, no, that was a 2-0, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, yeah. So that will end it for round 6 here. We'll be back in just a minute, possibly with the finals, and see how that goes, depending upon if we got some more matches that we could watch. If not, we'll come back here and talk a little bit about what we saw. So see you guys in a sec.